18-year-old Ryan Staples from O'Fallon, Missouri, who recently became well known after organizing a highly successful Black Lives Matter protest in St. Charles County. His talk is titled Young, Black, and American, the Deadly Combination. Ryan will be sharing what it's like to be a Black youth in this country where the target on your back gets wider and wider as you grow older, and those who survive are stained, while those who perish are mourned. Please welcome Ryan Staples.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, thank you guys for having me. This has been the most incredible opportunity I think I've been given yet, to be able to talk to the people in my community. So first off, thank you for coming. You're a part of the change right now. I cannot stress this enough. People keep asking me all the time, how do I help? What do I do to make it known that I'm trying to help the Black community? And, coming to talks like this, where you're listening to an 18-year-old kid, which who would have thought knew so much, right? And you're listening and you're going to use this information and pass it on to others and pass on the story of what it's like to be a Black kid in America. That is truly prolific. Secondly, this is probably the most pertinent time in the 18 years I've ever been on this earth. I'm sure there's been way other times that, 9/11 and other times that have been huge in changing the scope of America. But you're a part of the change that is really going to shape America for an entire community of people. So thank you. For those of you guys who don't know me, like they said, my name is Ryan Staples. I'm 18 years old and I just graduated from Fort Dumont West High School. My plan is to go to St. Louis University in the fall and study political science. Afterwards, I'm planning on going to law school. Don't know where yet. That's 4 years down the line. I'll decide that in the next 4 years. And then becoming a civil rights attorney, and then hopefully running for some sort of public office in the very far future. Whether that be the mayor, state rep, or even president of the United States, who knows? But it's definitely on the agenda. I'm a Missouri Boys State alumni. I was captain of the track and field team at Dumont West. I was in Leader in Me programs. I was the president of Cultures in Action at my school, where we, founded the Black History Month production in our school and that sort of thing. So I would consider myself very knowledgeable on this sort of topic because to a lot of people like me, this, what has happened in the last 10 years that I can remember, we're pained. We are in a lot of pain right now, and it's finally become time for us to share our pain, and people are going to actually listen. So I guess I'll just tell you guys more about my background. I'm adopted. My mother is Caucasian and my father is Black. I have 3 siblings who are all mixed, and they're all younger than me. 2 brothers and a sister, whom I love, and I love my family very, very much, very, very much. There's, and I was adopted at birth, so there's no separation. All I've ever known is my family. I don't know who my birth parents were or anything like that. My mom is my mom and my dad is my dad. And we used to live in St. Peters, Missouri, until about 5th grade when my parents got divorced, and they're happily divorced, and I'm happy with it too. So there's no stress there. And, now we live in O'Fallon, Missouri. Both my parents live in O'Fallon, and I've just grown up here my whole life. And what I found is living in O'Fallon as an affluent, it's a fairly affluent neighborhood with majority Caucasian. I have found that being a Black kid here, you're looked at differently than you would be if you were a Black kid in an urban community, and a Black kid if you were in just a middle income community. And, growing up, I've always struggled with finding how Black I am, trying to balance the line between, am I being too ghetto for white people? Am I being too white for my own people? Am I not being, am I not being tolerable to people? And in my recent years of high school, I found out that I don't have to answer that question. I don't have to change myself for other people. And I think that's one of the biggest topics about today's discussion is Black people aren't the ones that have to change. You know, we do, while there is a lot of problems in the community, especially with, you know, relations toward the police and relations toward white people, it's not going to be us. You know, we've been trying, you know, we've been protesting, we've been, you know, advocating for different bills in Congress and that sort of thing, but we're not the ones who are taking this discussion to the forefront. Because quite frankly, what I have found in my years, and I'll explain them, I'll get a bit into it later, but what I have found is the most productive way for people to listen is for white people to talk to white people. And I think that, you know, they listen to each other, and it's how the Black community works too. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's that connection to one another that really promotes change and really, you know, pushes change forward. So, you know, when you're growing up in O'Fallon, Missouri, and you're Black, you know, there are times. I'll just give an example. So when I was in high school, I would say I was a fairly popular kid. What I would like to call it is called being the token Black kid in all of the friend groups. You know, it's a kid that they're acceptable with saying, you're not too Black to be in my group. And, you know, I have been told many times that I like you because you're not so ghetto all the time. You're not, you know, you're not wearing black Air Forces, and you're not the dude talking about, you know, SoundCloud rap. You're a good student, you're a track star. And I'm like, well, those kids are good students as well. They just are into different things than you. And I've always, you know, tried to include others into the group, but it's hard because there's a big separation. So for me, you know, growing up, I was always, you know, cool with the white kids and cool with the Black kids because, you know, I could flip sides and do both. And for me personally, that's a very hard thing to do. And I know there's a lot of other kids in our community who struggle with this same thing. Especially a lot of my friends that I've made in the past year and a half through track and field, through the protests, through different social networking sites, you know, we've kind of like, we all have the same story. So this isn't just me that this is happening to. This is all Black teenagers across America, and especially in affluent neighborhoods like the ones that we live in. So what I kind of like did to change this is, you know, and it's not really changing. But the problem is kids who see the media consumption, that the white kids are taking in is a lot of rap music and that sort of thing, because it's music, you know, just music is music, and they enjoy listening to it. But rappers, you know, I'm not going to say they rap about things that are positive at all. None of that, like, that's just not positive things, but that's the reality for a lot of people. So that's what they communicate through their music. And that's a very poignant thing for them to do. But then that is translated through kids. In their eyes, that's the entire community. So if I listen to a rapper who talks about drugs and guns, they assume that because I listen to that rapper, I also are into drugs and guns. And that's not really the case. And what I kind of call this, and I'm not going to take terms for the name, you know, me and my friend Sean and I, we've kind of nicknamed it the O'Fallon bubble, because there's a certain knowledge cap of the outside world that people have, and they don't really venture outside of it. You know, I remember freshman year, there was a girl in my class. She thought that Martin Luther King wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, and she didn't care to acknowledge herself or acknowledge that she was wrong, and she didn't care to, you know, find out who actually did. And a lot of that, I feel like, stems from the public education system, which, you know, I can see one of my former teachers, Miss Weber, in here. It's not the teacher's fault whatsoever. They're not failing us. They take time out of their day to do curriculum to teach us stuff that isn't a part of the curriculum. But the problem is, it's not a part of the curriculum. We're taught so much about white history and white supremacy in history. We have Christopher Columbus Day, and in elementary schools, that's the day where you get a party that celebrates a white man killing committing mass genocide. So why don't we look at him in the same lens that we look at Hitler in? It's that sort of thing that in school that you're just not taught. I can't remember a time other than senior year when we were read texts from Frederick Douglass. I can't remember a time other than, when I had a Black teacher that we were taught about Nat Turner. I can't remember a time where John Lewis, rest in peace, may God rest his soul. I can't remember a time that he was brought up in class and he spent his entire life advocating for civil rights for both Black people and other races. And it's this whole swell of knowledge that we're just leaving out of. It's history. It's American history. It's not just Black history. And it's the swell of knowledge that our youth are misinformed upon, because they think that, it was white people that freed the slaves. It wasn't Black people pushing for change and they finally got their freedom. It was, we're now going to write a bill that says you guys can't be slaves anymore. We're in charge of that. It's the common misconceptions of how history was written. MLK was peaceful and Malcolm X was violent. So that violentness, that's bad. Don't be like Malcolm X if you want to push for change. Even though we still use his militant words to describe the way we're suppressed in today's society. Without Malcolm X, we wouldn't use the same languages in the same way that we describe white supremacy and white nationalism. Those words wouldn't be used in today's discussion if he didn't, advocate and use those words for his platform. But he was violent, so we're just going to erase him from history and not talk about him. And MLK, he was peaceful. He worked with white people to get his change. So if you don't work with them, you're not going to get it. When in many ways, there's many texts that you can read about Martin Luther King where he completely would just blow off, the police captain and wouldn't work with certain white people because they were unreasonable, and push for Black change in the same ways that Malcolm X would. But, we romanticize the nonviolentness and the peace and love and try to make it more, I don't know, ideal for white people to consume. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because it's important to acknowledge that these things are wrong, and we have to start teaching the youth about it. I've found that most of my friends don't know about the war on drugs because in my school, majority of them are Republican. And I'm not saying whether one is right or wrong, because both have their issues, but they're hailing Reagan as the greatest president ever when he single-handedly destroyed, well, not single-handedly, him and Nixon and a mix of others. These different policies destroyed the Black and brown communities of many urban centers around America. And we're still suffering from those effects today. People think that Black history ended at civil rights, but now they're understanding that Black history didn't end at civil rights. It didn't end at OJ. Everyone thinks that OJ it was Rodney King. But we're not taught these things in school. We're not taught about the history of Americans, because to them it's Black history, and we have 1 month for that. And that month is consumed by, you need to be MLK and not Malcolm X. And sometimes, and from what I found is that's not, the reality for a lot of Black people. Like I found in my school personally, we have 3 or 4 Black staff in a majority white school. And the Black staff that is there, they have tried multiple times to get Black History Month productions started up, and different activities in the Black about history of Americans. And they don't go anywhere because the school just is too afraid to be the first people to go do it. So in my instance, when I was a freshman, we did our first Black History Month production at the high school, and it was very successful. It was probably one of the best events of the year because we made it, 1, free, and 2, you could donate and bring and give back to the community. So people came, and it was a fantastic event. But then the next year we put it on again, and this time it wasn't backed the same way it was freshman year. There was behind the scenes issues with both on the cast and crew side, mainly because we didn't have enough people because white kids didn't want to participate. And I asked my own friends, this means a lot to me. I'm trying to educate you all and help you be better so that we as a community can stand together and help other communities who struggle with the same issue. And this was sophomore year, so this is 2 years ago. And they all said, no, I can't get involved with that. Like I am not comfortable doing that. And my question was to them, well, I'm asking you to stand with me. Why aren't you comfortable being an ally of the American people? Because this is American history, correct? And they once I said that, they started to reconsider, and it wasn't as good as the first year. There was a lot of problems with it, and mostly because there was problems on the cast and crew side, and we couldn't get the lighting and things like that done. But we didn't have anyone show up. And then my junior year, it didn't even happen because the school first of all, the school wanted to put it in March, not during the actual Black History Month, which was a problem for us because you give us 1 month out of the year to, highlight our heritage, highlight everything that makes, Black history so great. And you only gave us a month, or you don't even put it in the month that you gave us, right? So it really hurt to see that sort of perspective. So it didn't even happen. And then my senior year, I got a lot closer with the, director of diversity in the school district, Mr. Juan Wilson, phenomenal guy. And I knew from the beginning of the year, I told them we're putting all kinds of projects in February because the lack of knowledge, there was a video that circulated that summer before we went to school of a girl going to my school. She was using the N-word in a fun, happy way. And, there was a lot of turmoil because I called her out on it. And a lot of people were like, well, she's nice. She's not racist. She just uses the word. It's not a big deal. And heading into that school year, there was a lot of turmoil amongst me and a lot of my other peers and classmates, because what I did, I'm not supposed to tell her that's wrong. I'm supposed to just say, it's okay. You're not racist. It doesn't matter. And I'm not one. Miss Weber can tell you, I'm not one to just sit by and be quiet about this sort of thing. I'm gonna call you out on it because it's not okay. So heading into the school year, I was like, Juan, we're gonna put all these different projects. We did door decoration contests. We had different trivia. We had different books on display in the library. And then we had our production, and it was the most successful year that the production has ever been, because all of those friends who told me 2 years ago that they were unsure of attending and they were unsure of, participating and helping and supporting me, they said, you know what, we get it. And this is before the death of George Floyd. So now they're all, this is way back in February. The school finally put it in February. So now all these people are saying, yeah, we're going to help you. And what I saw was, as kids are getting more and more older, they're starting to educate themselves more, because you can't hide, it's easy for the teachers in the class, or not the teachers, but the people who write the curriculum, not to add Black history into the curriculum. But it's hard for you to scroll down your Twitter page and not see, me or my other peers, posting different stuff about the Black community. It's hard for you to go through and not see a video of, it's hard for you to go through your camera feed and not see George Floyd being stomped on, being killed, being murdered. And what I found is, the more that you get older, you expand your sphere, you make connections to people, you're starting to see more of what's not taught in schools. And, people are starting to ask me, what books can I read? Did you see this? Oh, that's how hush puppies were made? Hush puppies were made by slaves who threw, old fried bread at dogs so that they could escape. I thought it was just a snack that me and my family had on the weekend. No, there's a certain history to these sort of things that people just don't know about. And kids are starting to finally understand and finally consume this media, and it's going to change things. But from what I've seen in my past is it takes them all the way up until their senior year to make these connections. And my sort of thing is, why aren't we starting this now? Because from the time I was in 5th grade, when the kids told me I need to go play basketball and not soccer because I was Black, to the time freshman year when I tried out for basketball and I wasn't the best kid on the team, but because I was supposed to be Black, or the time I was at a party and I was supposed to just be okay with the kids singing the N-word. It's all these different times that have led up to me always advocating against this. And now I'm just supposed to sit back and say, okay, you're finally understanding. You're finally a part of it. And I'm not blaming the kids because this is their life. You know, they go to school, they wake up, they go to school, they come home, they do their homework, they go to sports. You know, they don't have a way to access this information if they don't make friends with African Americans, because it's not taught in schools. And the books that they read at a young age, you know, we read Crispin in schools and talk about feudal, and the book we read, Great Gatsby, and talk about the great American dream. And, these books are important, but they're not teaching us the history of your fellow people. You know, we're humans too, and they're not teaching us what we're forgetting. We're forgetting that, people are still stopped and frisked in the 2010s. Like that didn't happen a long time ago. Up until people think Black history ends in civil rights, and that the war on drugs and redlining hasn't affected our communities, so that Black people aren't even in the same communities as white people, and that these communities are underfunded. We're taught it's just this sphere of influence, and kids these days just don't understand. And there's solutions to this that many policymakers have proposed, and different people I've spoken with have thought about. But the easiest solution is that we as a community, and we as people, I can see there's a lot of parents here, there's a lot of older generation people. We're in charge of making sure that our kids from the time they're born up until 18 are taken care of. So why aren't we taking care of them to help take care of other people? We're teaching them this is your history, this is white history, but in reality, Black history and white history are both American history. So why aren't we teaching the history of America to these kids? I have found just growing up that it's not, there's no media for them to consume about it. We're not shown Fruitvale Station in schools. We're not shown different movies and different, like Get Out, I think is, it's a goofy movie to say, but it has a lot of underlying themes that a kid, if he just sits and watches, is going to be like, I just like the movie. I liked it because it was a horror movie. But if we as adults say, well, no, here, look at this scene and understand that this is what this means, because for me, for the scariest part of Get Out is when he's finally escaping and, hitting the people that captured him with a deer. But the scariest part for Black people is in the end when the police show up and he has a dead white woman next to a Black man. That is the scariest part for Black people. And that's a hard concept for people who don't live that life to understand. I remember a time, I went on a date with a girl and we were just driving, she saw a police officer and she goes, Ryan, slow down. Like I don't want you to die. And I was like, whoa. One, I'm not going anywhere above the speed limit because I can't give them a reason to pull me over. And two, that was so embarrassing that just because she was with the African American, she had to worry about his life instead of just, hanging out and having a good time. That, this is a reality for a lot of kids these days that are Black. And it's hard for us as a community to, accept the fact that this happens in our community. My friend Jalen, who helped me organize the protest, he has been pulled over 4 times in 3 days simply because, he looked like a suspect in a crime, which is which, all credit to the O'Fallon PD for helping us organize the protest. They're a great organization. The police chief is a fantastic man, but at the same time, that's not okay. And we have to hold these things accountable and hold these people accountable for these different things, because that is, while it happened to Jalen, and while I've never been pulled over, so I can't say, but I definitely had the talk, because the talk for a Black kid isn't about the birds and the bees and whether to be safe or not. It's about, if you're ever pulled over, I need you to survive. Because for African Americans, we're fighting for our lives, especially as teenagers, because, teenagers, you have hormones, you just start you get anxious, you get angry, because why is this happening to me? And especially when we start thinking we're invincible, because I really think I'm invincible right now. So if I were to get pulled over, at any given time, what if I was just having a bad day and I said something to a cop? Because I've been pulled over with my friends on the way to school in the morning when they give me a ride or whatever, and they said, the officer is like, "You guys going to school?" And he goes, "Well, I'm late now." Well, if I were to say that, how would that have affected me differently? Because then it would have been, "All right, I'm going to need you to step out of the car and put your hands on the hood." It would have been, "I'm going to need you, I need to see," when I'm pulled over, it's, my friend Jalen told me, he was like, "I need to see license, registration, ID." They asked for my ID when I wasn't the driver. And my friend, the other time I've been pulled over with my friend, he was like, he doesn't need this, he doesn't have to give you his ID. Him fighting for me, but I've had to say, no, don't involve yourself. This is the reality for me. This is what it's like to be a Black kid. And kind of in conclusion, as I've told you a lot of my stories of like what I think is the problem, just understand that, while your generation and the older generation has, finally start to see and start to post about Black Lives Matter, it's similar to the circle of poverty. Parents grow up poor. They can't afford you to go take you to a good school. You don't get a good education. Good education doesn't mean you don't have a good education, which means you don't get a good job. That in turn means, you have a bad job that doesn't make a lot of money. Not a lot of money means you grow up poor. Then you have kids who also grow up poor. Circle of poverty. There's a circle of ignorance and lack of knowledge torn Black community. Parents grew up and they think, "Oh, well, Black history ended with the civil rights. This isn't happening to Black people anymore. There's no colored or white sign, so it's fine." But in turn, you have issues where police officers are choosing to go into Black and brown communities, especially, and throw people up against the wall if they're not the people committed in the crime, if they just happen to look like the crime. So then they don't understand that. They pass that down to their kids, and they say, "Well, everything's fine. So here you go. Here's the keys to the mansion I have, and here's the keys to the Mustang I just got for your 16th birthday." And then these kids grow up and they don't understand that these things are still happening. So we need to start educating the youth, and we need to start telling them, that's not okay. You want to buy all the clothes that your favorite rapper's wearing, but you don't want to at the same time tell your white friend that saying the N-word isn't okay. That you need to read books like The New Jim Crow and read stuff from Maya Angelou that still, is applied to today's society. These things are all kind of building up on each other. And it's not, I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, but as we start to teach our kids, listen to these people. Stop listening to the Breakfast Club and listening to people like Charlemagne the God, whose opinions are Black, and Black people need to hate white people and white people need to hate Black people. Start reading stuff by John Lewis, start reading things like NPR and, consuming unbiased media, and understand that those are Black people are people too. And we're in a lot of pain and suffering right now because we're watching people who are the same skin color as us, one, be completely dehumanized and treated like we're not people still. And two, slaughtered in the street and were forced to watch through a video camera. And the second we, try to start telling kids and start telling, adults to listen, to not be so quick to argue and quick to say, media lies like black on black crime and things like that. When we start believing and start understanding that, why would they lie about these sort of things? What can we do to help? And then start understanding and listening. That's when we can finally make progress in this world. So that's all I really have. I know that he's probably going to open the floor up to questions. And I love answering questions. I really do. It's my favorite thing to do.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Great.
very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. And everyone there, if you have a question, unmute yourself, ask your question, and then go back to mute.
Ryan, do you plan to organize another march anytime soon?
I've spoken with, my parents, because of course they were very, nervous about my march and things like that. And they've kind of like told me that I need to, slow a bit down and, kind of take it all in. But that doesn't mean I'm done. Me and my friends were talking about, voter registration drives. We're talking about posting, like creating a podcast that people can listen to where it's just the four of us talking about different political bills that people can vote on in the upcoming election to support, or well, not bills, but people in the upcoming election that are pro-Black and that sort of thing. So while I may not be, organizing a protest, and I just don't know. I'm a teenager, so I'd never know anything heading into the day. My schedule is all over the place. But while I may not organize a protest, there will be other ways that I'm helping the community for sure.
To me, there are two issues that are extremely important, and you've really identified them. And one is people have to be more knowledgeable. Ignorance is a terrible problem in this country. People are ignorant, not because necessarily they don't have the information, because most people have access to the internet. The information is there, but they choose not to avail themselves of it. It's more like a willful ignorance. And second, another important factor, and you touched on it also, is empathy. Just because it doesn't personally affect you today, that doesn't mean it's not important. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and I hope you continue. And I love your plans to go to law school, because I'm a retired lawyer, and get into politics, because that's the way you make change.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I got a quick one for you, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. This is very informative. One of our committees is going to purchase books for libraries in the Wentzville School District, Francis Howell, and we're looking at, and it's all books with an anti-racism theme. And do you have any recommendations on high school level books, or really any level? I know you mentioned the new Jim Crow or something by John Lewis. Those two, or anything else?
I would say, I'll reiterate this point because I've read this book and it's so prolific. The new Jim Crow has completely changed the way I've attacked mass incarceration. So that book, if you can make that number one and make sure you get 50 million copies of it in schools, I would advocate for it, of course. I know that there's a book called, gosh, why can I not remember the name of it? It's written, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. Why can I not remember? Wow, this is embarrassing. Okay, moving on. But yes, those two books for sure. But if you give them my contact info, I'll just go to my library right now and just give you a list of the books I have sitting in my house, and I'll just forward it to you. Because I don't know why I'm blanking, but for sure, I will definitely get that to you.
So how do we get, how are you going to get kids to read them? You know, how do you get kids to read them in high school? I don't know.
So, you know, my kind of thing is we can change the curriculum as, you know, public education, because we have referendum and initiative here in Missouri. So why don't we put up a sort of referendum-ish initiative to say, for every American classic literature that we have, you need to have a anti-racism or anti-homophobic book, or, you know, these topics that are affecting the youth and people today, have these civil rights books to go for everyone. So for The Great Gatsby, have The New Jim Crow. For you know, and then there was none, have Roots, have these books, have Uncle Tom's Cabin be a book that we still read, you know, these sort of things for a classic book. And we put these initiatives on the voting ballot and have people vote on it. Because if you vote no against that, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Thanks.
All right.
For sure.
Well, I am a junior at SLU, and I am honestly so excited to be going to the same school as you soon. I'm actually also a MLK scholar. I don't know if you are, but if you're not, you like literally absolutely should be, because that is the place to make change. So if you aren't, I will get your contact info and send you the application, because there is literally no reason why you should not or would not fit that. But I think SLU is a great place to make change. I think that your enthusiasm and your just continued drive, I think that is also something that we need there. So I cannot wait to see what you do there. I think you'll do amazing things. So, like, I can't wait, honestly.
Thank you. Do you guys like mind if I like drop my email and my phone number like in the chat? Is that okay?
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna do that right
That's
now.
fine. Yeah, and then
I want to like self-plug on accident, you know.
That's all right. Yeah, does anyone else have any other comments or questions for Ryan this morning?
I don't really have a question or anything, but I also go to a Jesuit school. I go to Georgetown in DC, and I'm a political science major. Well, they call it government there. I'm a government major, and I'm also wanting to go to law school. So I don't know, if you ever need a DC connection, I'm happy to help with whatever. Law school is awesome. I can't wait to go. So I obviously think that's an awesome choice.
Thank you. I'm planning on going to DC in August, roughly around like the 28th sort of time, to help Reverend Al Sharpton with his National Action March that's taking place there. So one, I'm very excited to go, and two, American University, I know that's like your guys' like rival or whatever, but it was also on my plate to go, and I just ended up like not applying because I wasn't really I'm not confident in myself when it comes to college and that sort of thing, so I didn't really apply. But I'm very excited to go to DC. It's gonna be my first time, so I can't wait to see what it's like there.
Yeah, DC's awesome. You'll love it. It's super great out there.
I went to American University Law School. Keep that in mind. It's a good place.
Yeah, it was an option, but just didn't really want to.
So I have a question. I worry about, we've had these protests, and I know in some places they're still going on, but I also feel like, are they just going to die? How do we make sure that we keep them going?
Keep the pressure on.
Yeah. I worry about that. Do you worry about that?
So yeah, it's been a kind of a worry that, people are still, texting me and saying, you're still in the news cycle. Like, haven't you floated out yet? And kind of to combat that, my sort of thing is, while the protest may stop, the change is not. I don't know if you guys know, but Ella Jones, the first female Black mayor, was elected in Ferguson last month. And that is huge for that community. I mean, we all live here, so we all know what happened to Michael Brown in 2015. We all know that that was the start of the Black Lives Matter movement. So for them to have a black mayor 5 years ago, that tells us that the protests they're working. There's different acts in Congress. I spoke with my state rep the other day, and we talked about having, basically in a civil rights case where the police cameras turned off, you have to, there's rebutable presumptuary evidence in favor of the plaintiff, which is the civil rights, a black or whoever person. There's evidence in favor of them, and we're going to make that bill happen here in Missouri. So while, I'm worried that the protests may stop, I'm not worried that the change is going to stop, because people are listening and we're getting more we've gotten so much accomplished, and we're starting on getting no-knock warrants, banned federally, and we're working on getting body cameras turned on at all times federally. So the change is coming, and it's going to happen whether the news chooses to report it or not. So if the news wants to, report it and make themselves look better, be my guest. But the change is not stopping at all.
Love that answer. So I will also, I didn't know there was stuff going on at the state level, to support getting rid of racism if at all possible, or at least, minimizing it. So I will look into those things.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan.
How you doing?
So I was talking with a friend in a different city, a different state, about actionable steps. And she said one thing that we could do is call the sheriff of whatever town we're in and say, hey, what are the specific things you're doing to help make a change with your policies, with your procedures, with implicit bias training, whatever. So I was wondering, from your perspective, what would be a good place to begin that conversation? Like, if I called him up, I don't know what I would say. I'm not sure, what demands to say, hey, are you doing these things? So I was just curious what advice you had for, if we contacted representatives, are there specific things you think we need to be saying when we talk to them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I kind of, spoke to a state rep, the first thing I asked, well, I'll just give advice on how to approach it, and then things that you should, say. Well, you got to come in with a certain problem. You have to have it clear, defined out, and then for the problem, have a solution. I spoke to our state rep about how the way public schools are funded here in St. Louis area specifically, and how they're based on property taxes, and how I think that's, very, very, very advantageous for Caucasian Americans as a result of redlining, and how to fix it by making it a share tax that is split evenly, so that the schools that have the good resources, they can keep the resources that they have currently. Zumwalt's not going to lose their Chromebooks because the property taxes in this area aren't funding schools, because we already have them. It just gives an opportunity to other areas downtown, like East St. Louis, so that they can have these sort of things. And then I would say, so the funding of public schools, that's a huge topic. But for the police department specifically, I would talk about, because while they're not required to keep their body cameras on, I would strongly urge the sheriff to make that a thing in his police department, because that was a problem with a certain drug stop that a police officer did in St. Charles, where he turned off his body camera. So we have no idea what happened. It just how happens that the drug guy was hyped up on drugs, and he came out with wounds on his back because he ran into his car because he was hyped up on drugs. Something about that sounds fishy to me, and I don't know if it sounds fishy to you too, but it's these sort of things. And also making sure that implicit bias training is in the police department, and that they're having diversity seminars and having Black police officers speak to them. I think that those things are very important if you were to take to a state rep or sheriff, for sure.
All right, any other comments?
I hear a lot of people with a lot of different interpretations of what defunding the police actually means. What does that mean, and what do you think about that to you?
Oh, to me, the whole notion of getting the police department, while radical, is also very, very, I don't know if it's achievable right now. So for me, defunding the police means, I don't, the whole defunding the police is a great way to coin the term. But to me, I would say demilitarizing the police is the proper way to really address that concern. Specifically, making sure, police officers are outfitted with Ford, the newest Ford Explorers, and out here in O'Fallon, for what? And they're making sure, they're equipped with automatic assault rifles in drug raids and that sort of thing. And I'm a very, very big advocate that no one should have assault rifles on the street. I think gun control is one of a huge, I'm a school student. So I always went to school with the worry of, having a school shooting. And that's the reality for a lot of, kids these days, especially students. And it's a concern for teachers as well. But, making sure that they aren't, I'm not saying take away funding from the forensics department who do a good job and take money away from the people who are, I'm not saying take away the police, defund the police. I think while those words are very militant and can achieve change, because what kind of happens is you're asking for a lot, so they're going to give us a little. So if we were asking for a little, they're not going to give us any. So by asking for a lot, they're going to meet us halfway, and that halfway could be better than what we could have if we asked for a little bit. So I think demilitarizing them, making sure that they're, not defunded, but retrained, if that makes sense, have them think differently. I think one of the things I also spoke to my state rep about was a police liability insurance, where in the case of a police brutality, the police officer is financially responsible for what happens to the family of that person. And on top of that, if a police officer, we make a police officers own a bonus every year for continued good work and such. So if they commit a police brutality, because we have a problem, there's a police brutality that happen, but police officers have snitching type things where they don't want to say. So if a police brutality happens, you take that bonus away, and you can give the bonus back if someone reports a police brutality in these high demand departments. I think that is a very poignant way to get change started in the police department. And we're not defunding them. They're allowing to keep their money. We're just demilitarizing them and getting rid of these, my brothers in blue, I can't snitch on them for doing something bad sort of ideals. Sorry, that was a really long answer for a really short question.
No, it was great. And demilitarized when you say that, because I think a lot of officers approach being police as combat rather than guardians. So that to me is a great way to express it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel that a lot. I
Yeah.
live in Alverton Park, which is right between Ferguson, Florissant, and Hazelwood, tiny little community. And I live on the same street as the police department. And we have 1,200 people in this little area, and the cars are brand new. They are, top of the line. I've never seen any cars anywhere else in St. Louis that look like these police cars. And they have 4 or 5 of them in this tiny community. I'm like, I don't understand why all that money had to go towards these fancy cars in this tiny little dot of a place. And they're constantly around here. They're known for pulling people over on North Florissant. I'm on North Florissant. And it's known for that. And it shocks me. I don't have much to add to that, but just to say I see that, and I really recognize that to me seems like such a waste of resources to get these cars all stocked up, and that money could be used so many other places.
I've seen a statistic in the city of St. Louis specifically where the police are 20% more funded than the public education system in St. Louis. And it's going to be hard to kind of restructure the way that money is spent, but it's possible. And, if you bring these things, if you have the solution, the way I had with the police liability insurance, and you bring them to the state rep, they're going to listen to you, because quite frankly, some of them just don't know what to do and they don't know how to approach this. And if you bring it to them, these different things can get accomplished. So I'm sure that you have a city councilman. I'm not sure. I don't really know how a community of 1,200 would work, but a city councilman, if you were to approach them and say, I don't know why they're driving a brand new car and there's a pothole in my road, you know, you should probably, you know, fix that, because potholes in St. Louis are ridiculous. And I know, especially down there in Florissant, they're absolutely, because when I drive to my grandparents' house, I'm just bouncing up and down all the way there, and they live out in North Florissant. So, you know, fix it, these different things, you know, can we change this funding? Can you put this on the agenda? And different people that are still running for office, they'll listen to these and they'll put it on their thing just so they can secure a vote, and make it a part of their platform. So that's my like suggestion to you, and how to, you know, make sure that they're not driving the newest car.
There's a great model for demilitarizing the police in like Camden County, New Jersey. You look that up. It was, I don't know, 10 plus 20 years ago or so. It's been a huge success story there, and it seems like it would be a good blueprint, you know?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I remember reading that, I guess back in February, before our Black History Month production. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. We should make this, you know, national.
Camden County, New Jersey sounds like Cory Booker's borough. That, you know, he was mayor of that town, and now he's, is he governor now? Is that correct? Presidential candidate, Cory Booker?
Senator.
I don't believe he's, Senator.
Senator.
Hey, Ryan.
Ryan, this is Jeff Stone. Hey, thanks for coming today. You obviously have a lot of advocates here in the virtual room. Keep us in mind, keep us on your distribution whenever you have different initiatives. Maybe we can support you somehow.
Thank you.
Hey, Ryan.
Thank you.
Ryan, it was good seeing you again. Happy birthday to you. Hope you had a good one. You mentioned your trip to Washington. Do you have a GoFundMe page or anything like that to help defer costs?
So I've been talking with a lady in charge of it all, and she says that it's funded, like but she's been very vague on like that sort of thing. She was supposed to start a page because she's like working with different celebrities to help fund my college, and how much, because sure, you know, the lady who was in here earlier, she'll tell you that SLU's expensive. So, and you know, my family, we live in O'Fallon, but we ain't rich now. So
right.
she was talking about making a GoFundMe page, and as soon as that's like, I guess up and running, I don't really know what the status of it is yet. I don't know where she's at with it. But as soon as that's up, I'll definitely let you know. I know it'll be posted everywhere on Facebook, and there will be a website and stuff. So I'll definitely find a way for you to find out about that, and I'll let you guys know as soon as possible.
Great, keep us posted. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope I'm still around when you run for president, so I can vote for you, because I think you'll be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. We're getting close to the end of the hour. Thanks so much, Ryan, for your presentation today and talk. And I think you have a lot of supporters here at the Ethical Society Mid-Rivers. And yeah, please keep us posted on your future goings on, and we'll definitely support that. Yeah,
thank you guys for having me. I'm gonna go ahead and post my contact information. I don't really know. Actually, I'll just go. Oh, that's the enter button. Well, I was gonna put my social media in there, but it doesn't matter. So thank you guys once again for coming to listen. I know it's probably weird listening to an 8 or 10-year-old talk about like topics that are super important, and not just like playing video games or, you know, doing other unsightly activities. So thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Sure.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Coming up next. Yeah, coming up next Sunday, July 26th, we'll be having a living ethics discussion platform on Zoom, and then Wednesday the 29th, at 7 p.m. There's going to be a book club meeting on Zoom, and we'll be sending out some codes for that separately as it gets closer there. I want to close with a short quote from civil rights icon, Representative John Lewis, who passed away on Friday. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is a struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us. And I look forward to next week. Thanks a lot, everyone.